time.
All right, man.
Welcome to another edition of what are we calling this again?
No. Yeah, I think I like Real Talk with Julio Sandoval and Matthew Beatty. I'm Julio Sandoval.
And I'm Matthew Beatty. That makes sense.
That makes perfect sense, dude. Yeah, man. So, how's mortgage biz? What's new?
Interest rates. I know it's been painful, I think, for people to watch and see the interest rates going up in this first quarter of the year. I think what people miss is the fact that this is actually a normal cycle to the market. So normally, we've seen the ebbs and flows of the market, and coming into January, it typically goes up higher. So I think some people are freaking out because they don't understand and like the history. And then everybody believed that the party was going to keep going on. It was just a huge rager. But, with the Fed trying to dial things back, inflation going up, like all those little things are really affecting the interest rates in the market. And it's a natural, healthy system that we're experiencing. So it's like, don't freak out. It's all good.
Yeah, totally. And what will be really nice will be to see like a little bit of a balancing act take place. If not downward pressure from interest rates on home sales prices, at least a plateau, instead of this runaway pricing.
Well, I think it's going to thin out how many buyers you have on properties and who's actually putting in offers. So I think it's healthy overall. I think we're still going to see prices continuing to go up. We just talked about how, it's harder to find homes in the 700,000. Now we're looking at 800,000. So that is a healthy piece to the market. It is going to continue to happen, especially in our area, like the 90808, like we've talked about in Long Beach. It is all about that, natural evolution of the market as things keep continuing to go up. And it provides for better conversations that we're having with the borrowers.
Yeah.
Right? Talking about retirement, talking about if you're going to sell, where are you going to go, what are you getting? So I like it. To be honest, I just feel like we're having really good conversations with buyers, honest conversations. It's not just being punch drunk on the market. It's like, okay, do I really want to do this? What is this going to take? Where is it going to place me? And what is my future going to look like?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. A home used to just be a home, but now it's a big part of your investment portfolio and something to seriously consider when you're thinking long-term retirement and what's my place actually going to be worth. I've got family they bought for around 150, 180, and now they're looking to sell around $1 million, 900, 800. But even still, that's a really nice, amount of money to retire with.
Yeah, and it's how do you approach retirement with that? Like, how do you leverage that equity component? How do you, if you're going to sell and then move? Things to know as far as taxes, tax consequences, how to leverage it and be tax-free on it. So there's little things to note that we could help guide you through. And like you said, it's part of being on your financial team. We talk about sitting down with your tax preparer more now. So we can talk about your taxes, talking about discussing, your financial plan with your financial planner. Yeah. So that we're putting you in a mortgage that fits in with your group of people. And in real estate, as far as investment, if you're selling, where are you going? How are you moving your property tax base, like we talked about last week? Yeah. So things like that are just important pieces that we're going over with clients more now and just having a deeper conversation.
So as we're moving into spring and then summer, the big question that I'm fielding a lot is, Matt, this is our year. What's it going to take for me to buy? People want to buy in a decent neighborhood. They want more than one bathroom. They want a place where they can be comfortable and not purchase the place and immediately have to start thinking about, where they're going to go next, where they're actually comfortable. So I'm telling them that price point is between 700 and 850,000, you know, in a decent neighborhood. What are you thinking price point? Do you think that's about right?
Yeah, that's a fair assessment, because nowadays it feels like a condo is going to be at 600,000 with
Sure.
a high HOA to be in a nice neighborhood. So yeah, I agree. It's anywhere between, and I think you're closer to that 800,000. It's
Yeah.
more of like 750 to 850.
750 to 850 for a nice single family residence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
3-2.
Turnkey.
Yeah, exactly. Where you
Yeah.
don't have a whole lot to have to do to it.
Well, this is a really good question to ask you because of your experience in the market and with buyers, getting them pre-qualified and on their way to home ownership. What does it take, just, you know, brass tacks, what does it take to get pre-approved for a $750,000 home?
Well, I mean, the first place to always start is your budget. You know, where are you spending money? Where's your budget at, you know, for a house, and how does that fit into everything that you have, from your debts to, you know, paying for food?
Sure.
So it, you know, going back to the deeper conversation is, how does this fit into your scenario? Because it's a big payment, and if you've been used to renting, it can be a sort of a payment shock to
Yeah.
you. Because if you're looking at an $800,000 house, I mean, you could be up to about a $4,800 a month payment. And if
Okay.
you're used to paying $2,000 for rent, that's over twice as much as what you've been used to paying.
Sure, sure.
So that goes back to having deeper conversations about tax benefits for home ownership, being able to write off the mortgage interest and property taxes, as well as, you know, how does this payment fit in with that budget? Like, are you paying for your car? You know, do you have student loans that
Yeah.
you have to deal with? Like, where does that fit in with that? And it's also talking about your savings. You know, there are a lot of programs that are available out there to help you with being able to purchase, even
Sure.
up in the higher price ranges.
Yeah.
Now, they are capped, you know, so it's not like you can, you know, go crazy with them.
Yeah.
But in certain situations, you might be able to leverage some of those pieces and components. But you should expect, on an $800,000 purchase price, to be ready to spend about $48,000 minimum.
Okay,
you know, to buy.
48,000 out of pocket. So you want to have 65, 70,000 saved minimum, just like so you get in and you're not house poor. You can buy a couch, you can buy.
Exactly.
Yeah, so like I have clients who say, Matt, I'm ready. You know, and then we look at the savings and it's like, yeah, we can get you the house, but as soon as we close escrow, you're gonna have nothing, you know, and that's not a place where I want to put somebody,
No.
especially somebody with kids, you know, or, you know, something
Yeah.
comes up, you need to be able to take care of stuff. So 48,000 for down payment and closing costs, and then the mortgage payment will be
$4,800 per
about
month.
$4,800,
Yeah, and you're looking at principal, interest, taxes, and insurance with that.
the PITI.
Yeah, and this is where you might want to consider leveraging your 401k or investments. You know, maybe you've been hurting with what's going on with the stock market a little bit, so you're looking to maybe take some of that out and reinvest it into a home. You know, that might be a really good idea to take a look at, because of the fact that if you're reinvesting it into the home, where we are with growth potential and where we see the future going, I know a lot of people feel like, hey, is this going to be one of those things that, you know, the market changes on me and I'm going to be losing equity?
Sure.
No, if you think about it in the terms of long-term investment, what you're looking at is, and we've said this, that there's no one who ever has owned a home in California for 30 years and thought, ooh, that was a bad decision.
I wish I didn't buy that house.
I mean, think about it. I mean, people are getting equity growths, you know, time and time again.
Yeah.
And so I think it's more of, take a look at, you know, potential growth in where you're buying, you know, the offsetting of the rent that you're paying, and the, you know, overall rate of return on your equity over time, and what does that look like for the future?
Yeah.
So, you know, back to that conversation, deeper conversations, you know, and answering, you know, more complicated questions.
Absolutely, yeah. So one thing I wanted to point out is, one of the things that's really causing this run on real estate prices in Southern California is just the lack of inventory. I know a lot of people are very scared to sell because they don't know where they're going to go next. They even if they go out of state, you know, they're dealing with a multiple offer market where they're going to be competing against other buyers, and it's scary, and I totally get it. But what we're seeing right now is in the MLS in Southern California, we used to hover around 100,000 listings at any given time.
Yeah.
You know, between 80 and 120,000 listings at any given time. Now the MLS in Southern California hovers around 20,000 listings, you know? And so what we really need is for more inventory to come to market, you know, to kind of balance things out.
So if you're having this conversation with a seller, okay, and the conversation comes up with, you know, is this the right time to sell? Okay. What do you feel is the conversation that you're having with them about that? Is it, you know, high demand, high prices? And then how does that affect them on the flip side when they're buying, you know?
Yeah, so there's an advantage and a disadvantage that seller buyers are dealing with. Obviously, if they're selling their home, they're going to have to go somewhere, and most likely they're going to be, oh, dude, that's a parrot.
Yeah, the parrots are in the area.
2 parrots.
Yeah, there's a flock of parrots that actually, that flies through in Long Beach. I don't know if you've ever noticed. They'll go from Belmont Shores over here to Lakewood, and they'll head over to downtown area, and you'll find them. They move in a flock.
I've heard about them. I just never seen them up close like that. Oh yeah, we're surrounded by parrots.
Yeah.
Is this normal for your yard?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
they'll come every couple of weeks. They'll fly through because we have a lot of fruit trees in the area and a lot of tall trees where they can hang out in.
So you guys can't see this right now, but we're surrounded by these like dark forest green parrots, and they're incredibly annoying. And as a result, I lost my train there, but I'm ready to hop back on it. So okay, so where we were was there's an advantage and a disadvantage to being a seller buyer. The advantage is that you're walking with a lot of equity. So you can really swing that equity around to make better offers, more appealing offers to sellers because you have this equity base that you're transferring up to $500,000 tax-free if you're married, $250,000 if you're not. The disadvantage to the seller buyer is just the complexity of the transaction, you know? You're selling contingent upon finding another property, and that buyer is counting on you making the transition successfully. So it's a little more complex. There's more moving parts to the seller buyer, but the seller buyer ultimately holds the strongest card with that massive amount of equity to where if you get into a competitive multiple offer situation, that equity can be used to bridge the gap between an appraised value and an agreed upon purchase price, whereas a lot of buyers don't have the funds to do that. So you're going out there with more ammunition, so to speak, than your first-time home buyer.
So would you say as a first-time home buyer then it probably makes sense to be very flexible with the seller, maybe on time frames, giving them an opportunity to be able to find the up-lake property? Would you say that's an advantage for the first-time home buyer if they structure their deals that way?
There's multiple advantages to the first-time home buyer. But the biggest is that they're a traveler with no baggage, you know? They don't have to sell anything to make this happen. They're showing you all their cards right up front. Here's how much cash we have. Here's what we're willing to offer for your home. And if they're well-guided buyers, they're gonna say something along the lines of, my contingency period is gonna be reduced so significantly because I'm so sure that this is the home I want. Whereas the buyer who's accepting a contingent offer, you know, is accepting somebody who has to transact a little bit before they're ready to take keys. So both sides have their advantage, and I love the first-time home buyer because they don't have to do anything on the backside to make this sale take place.
Yeah, and it's that not having that baggage, having that flexibility, you know, to work with the seller that, you know, also, I feel like that is a huge component that you can show off as a buyer because you have to try to meet each other's needs, and you can shine in your submission of an offer, right? You know, like you do this a lot, which is like, hey, we're willing to work with you. What do you got?
Yeah.
You know, where can we help you so that you can get your offer accepted?
Sure. You
know, because it is challenging times with inventory being low, and that lends to the component that we've been talking about, is that where the market is and how it's moving is, with the low inventory, that drives prices, right? Because we don't.
Supply and demand.
Yeah, such a short amount of supply is driving that demand. And so when people are talking about the bottom coming out of the market, I'm like, it hasn't been that way. Like we've had to deal with this for so long that even California is taking a look at the ADU, and saying that we need more areas for people to live, so we've got to allow ADU possibilities.
Sure.
So for those of you who don't know, an ADU is an accessory dwelling unit, which allows you to build like a grandmother's quarters, kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, on your property. Even though it may not necessarily be considered a duplex after the build, you have a rentable space where you can bring on extra income or even bring in family, so that you're not moving kids out to a condo. You could be moving the kids out into the ADU in the back.
Absolutely, and the appraisers will add significant amount of value to a home that has a permitted ADU in the back.
Yeah.
And there used to be really high barriers for entrance. I mean, for an ADU in Long Beach, the application used to be $10,000 just to get the process started.
Yeah.
And they've removed that. And so, an ADU is a fantastic thing if you've got parking, right? Like if you're already on a parking impacted block, please don't build an ADU, because you're just like killing your neighbors as well as yourself. And nobody likes to come home with the groceries and have to walk 2 blocks with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there are areas of Long Beach where the homes are really tight and small in the streets.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, can't even find parking. I went to someone's house in Wrigley the other day, and I just couldn't find any parking. I'm like, hey, can we meet somewhere else? Because there's no way I can get to your house.
Yeah, like
There's
I
no
love you,
driveway,
dude, but let's just FaceTime. You get your beer, I'll get mine. Let's do this on FaceTime, because I literally can't park at your house. And actually, I've run into that quite a bit, especially during the holidays.
Yeah.
Like going down towards 2nd Street, and when I go to a little Christmas party, and it's just like, we parked, we'll see you in about 45 minutes. You know what I did for one? I parked down at the marina and then Ubered to the person's house.
Oh my goodness.
Because that's how bad it was. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's how you got to do it. I have a truck.
Yeah.
So when I'm trying to park, I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't take my truck, or I'm going to need to park in some kind of field somewhere.
Exactly. What field? We don't even have fields. But yeah, the ADU is an interesting option. The barrier for entry on ADUs are continually being reduced, the barriers for entrance, making it easier to not only have this extra living space, but it's legal, it's permitted, and adds value to your home.
Yeah, and CalHFA has instituted a grant program for ADUs to allow you to kind of offset some of the upfront cost of, the architectural plans, structural engineer stuff, permitting. They'll actually cover that cost up to $25,000. So if you check out calhfa.ca.gov, you can see their ADU program section. It's worth checking out if you're considering the build.
That's interesting. So that works as a second, or is that like a refi on your home?
No, it's a grant. So you end up, depending upon the cash, the way that you're taking financing for it. So if you are financing an ADU, there are certain companies that will provide construction loan programs for you to finance the construction of the ADU. And where the grant program comes in is they step in to provide that grant funds for the initial setup.
Sure.
So like I said, it's things such as architectural plans, engineering plans, and permits. So you start with them, they'll give you up to $25,000 for that. It goes into an escrow account, so once you close and you've got your contract work ready to go, they release those funds back to you for compensation for it. And you don't have to pay it back. It's a grant.
That's amazing.
Yeah, if you can take advantage of it. They do have income restrictions, so you definitely want to check out the website and talk to a lender on the website. It's a difficult program, so to do construction financing, and only certain companies do it, so they have a list of lenders that they can help you with.
Yeah. And is that kind of like a 203K loan where they have to come and check off as you pass different, thresholds of the development process?
It depends. Certain companies are using the FHA 203K for that.
Sure.
In order to try to make that work. Most are just doing construction loans.
Yeah.
Which is they take the first position and they give you a certain amount of money based on the future value of your property because you've constructed an ADU. So it's a different way of kind of helping out without, you're not doing a refinance per se. You're doing a construction loan and then you'll have to do a refinance on top of that.
Okay.
So construction financing is like hard money. For those of you who don't know what hard money is, it's a direct investor that's investing in you to construct a house that cannot be financed through standard financing, like FHA or conventional financing.
Yeah.
And so they will step in to help you with that, but you're on things like interest only, higher interest rate scenarios, short-term loans that you'll have to refinance out of later on.
Yeah.
So,
usually you're seeing those for about 12 months, and then they're going to want their money back, maybe 24.
Yeah, it's best if it's anywhere between 6 and 12 months at most, and then you can extend it out to 24 months if you need to, if it's a larger project. But if you really want to get it done in the short term, so you can get out of it.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of in-depth kind of stuff. So give us a call and let us know, and we'll walk you through more of what those look like those type of loans.
Yeah.
And kind of help guide you through. But yeah, there's different opportunities that are out there for those interested.
So I was reading recently about one of the things that's hindering our inventory, and I don't know if you know anything about this, but corporate investors coming in and investing heavily in single-family residences.
Yeah.
In Q3 of 2021, 20% of all homes that sold in America sold to corporate investors. And these homes they're planning on keeping them on their ledgers for decades as just like a stable investment,
Yeah, the new model with Airbnb and VRBO has kind of changed the look at owning single-family residences. And yes, corporations are stepping in, large companies to buy
the
homes.
biggest ones, Blackstone, BlackRock, Invitation Homes. They're diversifying heavily into single-family residences, and they're gobbling up our inventory, making home ownership become more scarce and sparse than ever. And it's something that we really need to keep an eye on and discourage homeowners from entertaining these offers. Because, once that inventory is sold to these multi-billion-dollar and in Blackstone and Invitation Homes, these are close to trillion-dollar companies,
Oh yeah, they're traded on the stock market. I mean, these are companies that are coming in to try to gobble up that inventory because of what it looks like for their portfolio. Because you think about it, if you're buying millions of dollars worth of properties and you're seeing an increase in the value on these properties up by 20%, and then you project that rents are going to be higher, that they're making money hand over fist on their investment on these properties by sticking with them long term.
And it's totally not fair too, because they borrow their money in the billions around 1% interest, whereas we borrow ours in the hundreds of thousands around 3% interest. So we can't really compete with the offers that they're making. And basically the point that I'm getting at here is that we as homeowners, as people, as the little guy, really need to start discouraging the sale of single-family residences to these massive corporations, because they want to get it to a point where very few, if anybody, actually owns property. And everything's becoming so corporate and unattainable. And at 20%, when inventory is already so low, if they're buying 20% of the available inventory nationwide, that's having a serious effect on the young family that's trying to establish themselves for their future.
Well, yeah, when do we get to the point where it's starting to create a monopoly where they're owning a greater portion of the homes than what's being sold and transacted between individuals?
Yeah.
Because you're right, it's going to cause an increase in value on the properties because they're buying them at certain amounts. And so from the selling standpoint, you're thinking, well, this is great because it increases my value. But on the flip side, for generations to come, it's going to make it harder for them to be able to buy properties because income's not necessarily going up exponentially, but the values on homes is.
Yeah.
So it's making it harder to be able to own a home like that. And I think it's going to push a lot of people into the condo situation more than it's into the single family home.
Yeah.
So, and most of us will end up being stuck renters.
Yeah.
Because it's just going to be harder to get in. I mean, we see the values go up now, and it's difficult to get in as a first-time home buyer.
So I think it's really important to start getting the message out there that, while up front these offers look amazing, they say we'll pay all cash and we'll close in 10 days, and they just kind of show up with a check, and it's like, it seems like the easiest thing in the world, but you've done a real great disservice to the generations that are following you, to your neighbors and your neighborhood as a whole, because a corporate investor is never going to put the love into the neighborhood that you or I would if we worked so hard, saved so much to obtain that property. Where they're just writing checks for it, and it disappears onto a ledger for decades to come.
Yeah, and it's the value of having your neighbor, knowing your neighbor, and enjoying that experience of having neighbors that you can shake hands with and know and
the
see.
The pride of ownership.
Well, yeah, there's so many times where I've had my neighbors step in because, a package got left somewhere, or they saw something on my property, somebody who seemed unscrupulous and came in and they were trying to help me out.
Sense of community.
Yeah, exactly. You lose that when you go to corporations, and now you'll have homes that'll be vacant until they can be rented, and there's nobody there to really watch after the home. Yeah, there's security systems, but it'll introduce different elements into your neighborhood that I don't think most people want to have around them.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And so, I was just doing a little bit of research on that. We'll keep you posted, as more information comes in about this trend and this change in the ratios of ownership between corporate entities and individuals like you and me. But it's definitely something that's scary, something to keep an eye on, and something to discourage in your own neighborhood.
Yeah, it's hard, this is a changing world that we're dealing with, and so, living in areas that you want to be in and raise your families in and not have to drive miles in order to get to work it's important.
Yeah.
It's important to make sure you secure that person that's going to come in and take care of the home. There's a value that you bring to a house, an emotional component. And I think it's a valuable element as a seller to know that you're handing off this home that you've worked on, that you've invested into, to someone who's going to care and love for it the way you do.
Yeah. Speaking of which, you're always doing really cool projects around here.
Yeah, always.
And I think on the next one, maybe we can talk about refis a little bit and how refis have kind of helped you and your family.
Yeah, we can go over and show just some ways to take investments, and we can talk about where to invest in your property, what to build, what's going to bring you value, and what's more of an emotional component.
Sure.
Something that you like versus something that's actually going to raise your property's value.
Yeah. And both have value, but ultimately you probably want something in the middle there, something that adds to your comfort in your home and your appreciation of your home, but simultaneously adds a lot of value should you decide to sell the property.
Yeah. We'll go over that, and we can touch on taxes too with that.
Yeah. How are your eyes doing right now? You've got a lot of sun in your face.
It just kind of came up over, and it was like all of a sudden bathing me in this glow.
Yeah. Well, you look great. I just gotta say.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's doing wonders for my crow's feet.
Yeah. Oh, dude, you wear them well, man. You're very